Hello, class. This is your professor, Dr. Brian Lippincott, and I'm glad to meet with you today and talk a little bit about couple and family therapy and finding flow in couples and family therapy. And my particular theory is family flow. My book that I published in December of this last year is Analytical Psychology and Family Flow, Analytical Psychology and Family Systems using neo-Jungian practice to help families find flow. So the flow state, it's a combination of Jung was real good at talking about intrapsychic things, what's going on inside of a person's head, their dreams, their visions, their ideas, their cognitions, their thoughts, their emotions, their sensations inside. But he wasn't very good about dealing with interpersonal things, where family system is really good at dealing with interpersonal things. And also, flow has the ability to get us in the zone so we can actually achieve our goals and our dreams, and shuts down that internal critic that says we're not good enough and we can't do this right. Okay, let's get going. I'm going to share my screen and get going here with a little lecture. Okay, let me move this out of the way if I can. There it goes. Okay, let me. Okay, so the title of this is The Shadow and Persona and the Dance of Flow, a neo-Jungian framework for couples therapy. So I'm going to go into some basic things of the shadow, that dark side of us that we hide from. I think of the shadow as like a bag that we start off and we're really whole. We have all these sides of ourselves when we first start off as little babies, but they're all in potential. And then as we go through things, certain things get stuffed in your bag. I remember when I was 5 years old, my sister was 12 years older than me, and she lived in the same room with me, and she was really a lot better than my mother. She was really my sister Glinda, and she was a good witch, a really good witch. She took really good care of me for the first 5 years. And then she left and escaped from the family and got married. But during that time, she really did really take good care of me and was nurturing and that kind of thing. She had almost no shadow. But I remember when she left, my dad was a Marine and he had fought in World War II in the South Pacific and Iwo Jima and all these islands and was a pretty tough guy. And he didn't go for a lot of femininity in his son. But after my sister got married and left, I had gone to the wedding. I was out front and playing with my little friends, and I had put on one of my little girlfriend's dress and we were reenacting the marriage, and I was tossing the bouquet over my shoulder, and my dad saw me dressed in this dress being the bride because I thought the bride was the hero of the of the wedding. And he blew up and had a big fit about, oh, how dare you? You know, can't be, and I really got shamed by that. So that feminine and being loving to arrange flowers and all that. There was a lot in that, just one incident that was put into my shadow. It was stuffed into my bag, and it took uh, basically about 10 years of Jungian analysis to work through that, from 30 to 40 really, and it really improved my ability to deal with women and children and a lot of different, almost everybody, by not having to repress all that. But anyway, that's a little story about the shadow. Our persona is what we get paid for, as we talk about. Our persona is that mask. It's a mask in Greek that the Greek actors used to wear when they would, in a play. And it's the mask that we wear that shows us how we want people to see us. So it's how we want to look to other people. And this is a great quote here. I'm not what happened to me. I'm what I'm choose to become. So especially in trauma, that kind of thing, it's not about what happened to you. And it's not about what's wrong with you. It's about what happened to you first, and then it's what you choose to become. And that's what this is all about. And I have some stories on the line about myself that kind of go through some of that. Okay. Okay. From broken machines to living alchemical systems. So the mechanistic view, which is the Freudian view, the cognitive behavior, is that patients or clients are broken. They're machines, they're linear algorithms, they're bugs to be recoded. Okay. And so the theory of that is I'm a therapist. I'm the big old therapist. I'm the know it all therapist. And I have all these tools behind me. And you are out there as the client. And I'm going to look at you and talk to you and find out what kind of a nut you are. Once I find out what kind of a nut you are, I'm going to go back behind me and get the tools and crack whatever that nut is and fix that nut that's broken symbolically. Now, what we want to get in the alchemical view is you have really all these skills behind you. You've learned all this way in your own culture, in your own society, in your own gender, in your own upbringing of your family of origin. You have this whole alchemical structure around you that you have a solution inside of you that's behind you. And the only thing I have as the therapist is really a flashlight to shine a light at the tools that you have created personally for yourself behind you. Okay, psyche as nonlinear quantum system. That's how we want to look at it. Couples as living alchemical systems where they're trying to make gold out of shit, basically. Transmutation, the lead or the prima materia, the stuff we put out, the shadow. That's the shadow, turning that into gold, which is the true self. You are not an AI. You're not an algorithm. I'm a man, not a number, as they used to say in that old show, The Prisoner. Most of you probably never heard of that, but it was a pretty good one. We need the psyche. Human beings are messy. There's an old saying that used to be said by Jung is uh, cleanliness is next to godliness. Messiness is next to goddessness. If you think about it, if you've ever been to a birth, it's pretty messy. There's shit and there's blood and there's guts and there's spit and everything else coming out of that thing. And it's messy, but it's the most greatest thing in life comes from that. Our children. That's what couples are. They're human beings and they're messy. Case study, Batman versus Bell, and we'll have other shows on this one that I've created. But Batman, the husband, he's Pastor Mike in my story. The Emperor, he's the driver, the extroverted thinking style. So outer, he's focused in the outer world and he's thinking, he's orderly, he's planned, he's constructed, all those things. I will fix this with a plan. It's all the thinking. Now the conflictor meets the distancer, his wife, the archetype, the high priestess, Belle from the Beauty and the Beast. She's introverted feelings, so she knows, she judges, she knows right and wrong inside of herself. And John Beebe, who I really listen to a lot, shows a video or a show of the Helen Mirren playing the Queen. And she's really introverted. She's really into herself. Now she's introverted sensation, but this wife, Sally, is introverted intuition, but she really is able to see things and she really knows how images for her are everything. She has to have an image of a man she can look up to, of a man who's going to take care of his children, who's going to be sensitive and caring and talk about his feelings, not have alexithymia as Mike might have. Okay. The persona, the social archetype, and the trap. Definition, the social archetype, the face worn to meet the world. That's how we want to look to other people. The systemic trap, we marry the partner's persona, the image, but live with the shadow, the reality. That's the shadow vows. It's what you don't say yes to when you say, yeah, I do. Okay. Their partner's persona, the image, but they live through the persona. There's a really good book by a woman named a Jungian analyst named Polly Young Eisendrath, and she calls that "You're Not What I Expected." And that's what happens about after 5, 6 years of marriage. You marry this person who you fall in love across a crowded room, and she's perfect, she's wonderful, but that's not the real her. You're really marrying your own inner anima, your own inner feminine side that you're projecting on her. No real, that's a goddess. My inner woman is a love goddess, okay? But no real woman is really a love goddess. They're a human being. So we project it onto somebody else, and then we spend the rest of our life as a marriage learning how to recollect that. There's a really excellent book by Marie-Louise von Franz called Projection and Recollection in Fairy Tales, which talks about this whole process in fairy tales of projecting out ourselves on somebody else and then having to recollect it and getting it back. Okay, Mike's persona, strong leader, hiding his vulnerability. There's nothing wrong here, nothing to see behind the screen. He's like, the in uh, Wizard of Oz, he's like the wizard. But he's nothing to see behind this screen. Sally's persona, the good wife, hiding her and stuffing way down her power and rage. And you know what's going to happen when that gets stuffed down? It's going to pop in the other end. That's called what Jung called compensation. You get paid for your persona, but you pay for your shadow. So let me repeat that. You get paid for your persona, your mask, but you pay for your shadow. That's what gets you. That's what bites. It's like a snake that bites you know where. The descent into the unconscious. That's projective identification in a couple. One person projects on the person, and the other person identifies with it. You know, like I approach her too hard, and they're like, "You're not loving me. You're not giving me what I want. Why? I don't want to give you what I want." And it goes into this vicious cycle where they project the opposite onto each other. Let's go through it. Mechanism, inducing disowned internal behaviors in the partner. It's kind of like gaslighting. In fact, it's what most people call gaslighting now. This is the actual psychological processes behind that, and it's unconscious. It's not on purpose. It's gaslighting kind of gives the connotation that they're doing it to you sadistically on purpose, but that's not what's happening. Mike's projection. He represses chaotic, any kind of chaotic, anything that's not organized. It's got to be perfect. It's got to be the way it is. And he's chaotic and erotic, and anything erotic is projected out. So he projects that into his wife and daughter. That's how we get into the whole therapy in the beginning. Sally's projection. She represses her power and her authority and her domination. Okay, and she projects onto Mike, seeing him as a controlling tyrant. Okay, you see how, and then that makes him act like a controlling tyrant because she's projecting her power onto him, and then when he does it, then she holds it against him. It's same vicious cycle in both of them, but different projections of the different archetypes and different shadows being projected on the other one. Metabolizing the projection. That's what the therapy wants to do. Taking back the lead. We want to see them whenever somebody has our shadow. What are they doing that's really like what we're doing? And we want to really explore that in couples therapy once we create a safe place. Now, this is San Francisco Jungian analyst John Beebe, my colleague, my professor. I've been studying him for 30 years. His fantastic works on typology have helped me understand so many things. But if we look at this is the spine of typology, and these are the archetypes that are. This is for everybody, your hero or your heroine. That's your superior function. That's what you're best. Then you're auxiliary, but we always have another one. Like my particular is extroverted feeling, extroverted emotional feeling out there. That's my hero. That's my superior. Introverted um, um, intuition is my second. So that's the images and being able to see the image. But that's what I use with my as a parent. I'm really good. In fact, I was kind of an expert at always noticing. Like my daughter, she's good at acting, My son is good at football. My other son is good at writing. My only superpower is seeing other people's superpower. But that's my parenting side. Now, my inner child, the puer or the puella, okay, that's because there's the spine and then there's the cross. So I have my first is feeling, then I have intuition. So my third here is going to be sensation. So but this is introverted, so this one's got to be extroverted. So extroverted sensation is my worst. I mean, I can't clean up for anything. My mom kept our house perfectly, so I never learned. So my child doesn't pick up any mess, and I just can live in chaos. But I don't even see it. I literally do not see the dust balls in the corner. That's my child side. Introverted, uh, extroverted sensation, noticing the outer world, what's really going on in the outer world. I'm a professor. I'm all up in my head. And as a therapist, too, I have to focus on reality. Sometimes I have to, in order to quiet myself down and really focus, I sit on my hands. That's kind of a signal to my inner child. But okay, now you see, my wife kind of had an opposite thing where and so you really want to look at this parent to child if they're the same thing. Like if introverted uh, intuition was the child of my wife, that's we're going my child who wants to marry their mother. We'll get to that in a minute. And then you have your anima or your animus. That's your inferior one. So if I'm extroverted feeling, introverted thinking, and my wife definitely was introverted thinking. I used to before there were computers, I called her the human biocomputer. the, because she was really like a thinking, introverted thinking, know what she thought about things. Not so perfect about extroverted thinking to know all the theories and all the outer things. Introverted thinking knows what they think and they develop their own theory of things. Now, the opposing personality is the same type, the same function. Like I'm extroverted feeling. So feeling here. So introverted feeling is my it's different on it's more introverted feeling where I'm extroverted, but the feeling is the same. And that's really the hardest one. This is our blind spot in John Beebe's theory. This is what we don't see about everything. We totally miss that. And um introverted feeling is something I totally miss, like a Helen Mirren. I totally would miss that type of situation. Now, our which is kind of pejorative, but it's the wise old woman and the wise old man, the wisdom part here, but it's in the unconscious because they're kind of tricked. They're kind of like a trickster, but that's another one. But the witch is kind of gets that. They're kind of controlling and they're it's like the parent on steroids. It knows a lot. Okay. These things here are down in our unconscious, so they're operating unconsciously. Don't mean that we don't have those parts of our personality. In fact, these parts here come under when we're under stress. Okay, the trickster. Okay, that's going to be the opposite of our puer. Okay, and the daemon, that's the worst. So extroverted feeling. Okay, my anima is introverted thinking. This is extroverted thinking. That's my daemon. That's like paperwork, the documentation, medical audits, those kind of things in community. Those drive me crazy. Those are my daemon. Now, the daemon is also a good thing because if I can learn to get that, or on a team, I always had somebody that was internalized feeling to tell me if I'm messing up. Okay. The 3D model of typology, conscious strengths cast specific archetypal shadows. And this is an example of the crossfire. Okay. Like, remember the parent, that's the second one. So, Mike, his parent is introverted sensation. And his wife, Sally, her parent, because Sally, her first one is introverted feeling. Okay. Mike's extroverted thinking. So but if you look here, Mike's parent is the same as Sally's child. Sally's child is the same as Mike's parent. So there's a crossfire of their auxiliary types. Their second types are really core into it, boring into each other and making it so the parenting style of one is making the other one feel like a child. And they're in this, you can see how this process would create typologically a vicious cycle. Okay, that and it really creates a vicious cycle. And we need to look at other things like if they like here, this, if we can get the introverted sensation, the details, that's how you feel. If we can get Sally really to get into the feeling of the sex, for instance, and Mike to really be extroverted and knowing what Sally wants and being able to predict in the future what she wants, and Sally really being the that's where we really have a good thing if they can go child to child, or when they're parenting, if we have both introversion and extroversion, and so if we have both as a parent, if they work together, if they work apart as parents, which kids have a tendency to try to separate people, that's going to happen. The core insight: who wants to sleep with their parent? Death of Eros. Who wants to sleep with their child? The death of Eros. Both ways. Mike's parent is the structure in the body, the sensation function. Sally child is her vulnerability. So we're trying to work those two things. He's really physical, she's really vulnerable. Okay. Sally's parent looks at the future and all the possibilities. Mike's is very creative, playful child. So we're missing the boat. We got to get him child to child, parent to parent, a parent child dynamic that actually kills sexual polarity, which is why Mike has what we call the mother whore complex or the Madonna whore complex, which is a whole other video. But we'll get to that. But I mean, we'll talk to that later on in the class. The shadow fight, the opposing personalities. So Mike's shadow, introverted thinking, becomes cold, critical, and see now if he's normally extroverted thinking, so he has a little bit of caring, or it comes across better because it's extroverted with other people. But his real opposing personality, his fifth one, that's his blind spot is he can be really cold. And this is like mirror, mirror on the wall here. Sally's shadow, extroverted feeling, becomes explosive, demanding harmony at the cost of the truth. And I have to be really careful with Sally because her introverted feeling is my opposing personality. So I have a blind spot understanding Sally's shadow in that way. I might project my shadow onto her and vice versa. The stalemate, unconscious typologies at war. So this is very complicated, as you can see. Okay, reframing participation mystique. Now, participation mystique, which I'll go into in other parts of the course, but that was created by anthropologists in the early 1900s, and it was used the word primitive, and it's really a negative connotation to indigenous peoples nowadays. But what participation mystique really is the flow state. The flow state is that thing, and it's not a really low primitive state. It's actually a very high level functional state, optimal processing. It just shuts down that inner critic. So there's a negative pole, enmeshment, pathological fusion with nature and with other people, like fused with your family, and you can't think your way out of a paper bag, or the positive flow, like church, communitas, flow, the interactive field. So flow state can be tagging and getting in trouble, criminal activity, or it can be helping people at church or creating in a town with a lot of gang members at Halloween, having a haunted house so the kids can be safe and things like that. These are two poles, two sides of the same coin. Historical context, originally defined by Jacques Levi Brule up in 1910 as primitive identity with the group. The Neo-Jungian revision is reclaiming the term. It's the precursor to flow. It's the flow state, actually, which the flow cycle. We struggle, We have a shifting into the flow. We have the flow state, which is the true participation mystique. And then we have to recover from that. We burn up all our neurochemicals. So it's a cycle too, but it's a health related cycle. The goal, moving from unconscious fusion to conscious spiritual connection. So in my 7 layers of the unconscious and the conscious, I go into that, which we'll talk about that later. But if you look here, the interactive field, like the magnetic field or the quantum field, that's in the subtle body. That's when we look at it spiritually. Jung, in his book, The Secret of the Golden Flower, he wrote the introduction to Richard Wilhelm's book, The Secret of the Golden Flower, which is Chinese alchemy and Taoist Confucianist alchemy. And it's this field here. It's not an individual by themselves. It's self in the relation, as kind of like what Carol Gilligan talks about, the feminist psychologist. You have the analyst ego and the analysand's ego, the client, the therapist and the client, and they have a we relationship consciously, but the client also can. The whole goal of therapy is to make your unconscious. So art therapy, I have her draw something and she learns about her unconscious by the drawing. She's learning about her own unconscious. I have a relationship with my own unconscious. But also we have transference and countertransference and projection. Like I see the client do things and I know about them more about they know about themselves. Like Tammy dreams about a vampire, and I can see the vampire and I understand what that is a symbol of. But also, just because I'm the big bad therapist doesn't mean that she doesn't see my unconscious. 85% of our communication is nonverbal. So 85% of what I'm telling you and giving this lecture, you're picking up on things that I don't know, that I'm even telling you because of how I'm telling it. Okay. Now, this is where the healing really happens. Okay. It's personal unconscious to unconscious to collective unconscious, really right down here. It's unconscious to unconscious. And in family work, we have a family and we have a cultural unconscious in between here. But it's really all these unconscious in this unconscious to unconscious. That's really the creating that safe therapeutic place, that temenos, that safe egg, that safe container, that alchemical vessel. If you're going to open up bombs, you're not going to just do it in the middle and everybody get blown up. You're going to create a safe bomb thing. You're going to wear all this stuff, all this armor and stuff. You're going to create a whole situation where you can unlock that bomb. So unconscious to unconscious is that unconscious trust and what we call like an emotionally focused therapy. I have some videos I'm going to put up about that too. It's that unconscious attachment. It's an unconscious internal working model that we pass from one to another through projective identification, positive and negative. Modern alchemical editorial. Okay. Jung was kind of racist in his use of the word primitive for the word participation mystique. I contend and I believe fully, and I'm campaigning as a advocate that we need to change the term participation mystique and we need to call it flow. And when it happens in a group, it's called group flow. When it happens on a baseball, football team, it's called team flow. When it happens in a family, it's called family flow. In a band, that's what we call jazz flow. Okay, the flow cause comes from Michele Csikszentmihalyi. Okay, Csikszentmihalyi. That's how you pronounce it. It's very difficult. Mr. C. He said call him Mike. To everybody that met him, he said call him Mike. So he invented the idea of flow. Reverie is this psychodynamic term. Mark Winburn, Winfried Bion, who we know a lot about, was a colleague, contemporary of Jung's, talked about reverie. That's when we kind of go and we're dreaming while awake, in a sense. That's what that is. Dreaming the partner into being, dreaming with open eyes. Now, communitas is when that happens in a group environment. You have that trust, that communitas, and it's also happens. One of the best ways to get communitas is speaking power to the man, speaking power to the like our when people get killed by ICE, the people that are um, advocates that are picketing and fighting against that are that's what our country and that's what communitas is. That's the definition of communitas when you're sacrificing and you could get hurt yourself, but because you want to help other people, like 5-year-olds, got not get deported and that kind of stuff. Sorry, I'm not trying to be political, but that's what communitas is. It really is that edge political and fools go in where angels fear to tread. The trickster, the fool, can say things to the king that's Bill Maher can say things to Trump that nobody else can, really, I guess. Even though now they're even coming down on comedians. But the application, moving from structure, rigid persona, to anti-structure, communitas. The result, the couple functions like a jazz duo dancing to jazz. You're getting smooth jazz, improvisational, distinct, yet one. That's what we're moving towards. The alchemical wedding and kintsugi, but you see, it gets broken. This is what we do in family therapy. When things get broken into all these pieces, we put them back together with gold so they're even stronger and better and worth more after being broken. Okay, we have to focus on differentiation of self, the ability to be in emotional contact, yet be autonomous, yourself and the other. The paradox, you cannot have true flow or union without true differentiation, separation. We know that from how birds fly. The kintsugi metaphor. The object is more beautiful because it was broken. And as it gets repaired, the breakage is wonderful, and it actually brings healing and more love to the relationship, the depth of it as the couple ages. The shift, withdrawing projections to see the other partner clearly and become also more identified, individuated within yourself. Interventions, circumambulation, like going around and around. The person isn't the problem, the couple's not the problem, the vicious cycle is the problem. Circumambulation, circling the center, just like Jericho, making the walls go down. Avoid linear attacks on defenses. Therapy, enactment, hot conflict. Couple talks through the therapist to cool them down. Okay, they talk to each other when we need to get them heated up when they're too cold. Jung talked about how therapy is like baking a cake or baking a croissant. It's got to have enough yeast for it to rise. It's got to have enough hot to cook it or it won't rise. But if it gets too hot, you'll burn it. So you got to keep in that therapeutic window, that narrow range, which we'll talk more about. Shadow talk, voicing. Maybe, hopefully, we can have in marriages from now on our vows and then our shadow vows. I wish I knew about that. My wife, that's a Freudian slip. My daughter just got married again, and was hoping that she would incorporate the shadow vows, but she didn't get to it in time. So we don't know. Voicing the shadow vows, the hidden resentments to bring them into light. Okay. Integrating the contrasexual soul. We both, I believe, have both an anima and an animus. Both men and women and transgender people have both inside of us, those images inside of us. But integrating those is what really makes a healthy marriage, I think, along with the persona and the shadow. The internal marriage, integration is required for external peace. The internal marriage here, integration is required for external peace. Okay. Both Sally and Mike. Mike's task, developing a relationship with internal feeling, his anima, learning to value without fixing. Sally, developing internal authority, learning to stand up without withdrawing. Okay, so they're both going in there. Okay. Outcome, enjoying the partner as a separate other, not a completion of the self. You're not going to make everything perfect for me. The rubedo, the gold of the self, the reddening. When you finally get the blood, you get that gold and you get the blood, and you've put it all together. Closing thought, the relationship is stronger because it was broken. Kutsagi, that Japanese making of things from that are broken. The journey from unconscious participation mystique to through differentiation and autonomy and alignment, goal setting, to conscious family flow, utilizing the unconscious to get into that flow state. The call to action, this therapist to act as a temenos, a container for this alchemical process. So that's a lot to cover. I will go more into it in detail with that. Please ask questions in the comments, or if you want extra credit, if you're a student of mine, you can ask a question in class or in the comments, and I would love to have a dialogue with you about all this. So thank you very much. And also, like, there's going to be other videos on the similar subject that will be attached to this one. Excuse me. Thank you very much. Bye bye.